right, hello.
Hey, you're looking a bit dark on mine. Does it look dark on your screen as well?
No, looks pretty light on my screen.
Cool. Okay.
Getting a little bit of feedback though, I think. Might
Yeah,
be might be a headphone thing.
might be my laptop. Is that better?
I
Still
think
there?
so. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. Oh, no,
Cool.
I'm still getting it.
Let's try this. Gone?
I hope so. Let's see. Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
Perfect. We'll just let everybody kind of roll in here for a minute and then we'll get started.
Great.
Alrighty. I think that's good. We'll go ahead and get going.
Nice one.
So first, I'd like to say hello and welcome everyone to my 12-day launch event for my new book, The Delivery Company, launching December 12th. This is the 12 Days of Delivery Company, a 12-day launch event where every day I interview a new author or indie publishing professional and give away one of their books at the end, so stay tuned. So tonight I am pleased to be interviewing author of Bang to Begin, Jethro Weyman. Jethro is a 30-year-old physiotherapist living and working in Birmingham, the UK, not Alabama, for the NHS. He manages a small team of neurology rehabilitation wards, treating people following strokes, brain injuries, and cancer, multiple sclerosis, relapses, amongst other conditions. He writes as much as he can, but also enjoys rock climbing, cycling, and occasionally yoga. Jethro has 2 self-published books available at the moment, both of which consist of short stories. His longer works, he's trying to get traditionally published, but this is a work in progress. He's also dabbling in a little bit of screenwriting. He'd love to make writing more than just a hobby. He says, if I could go part-time in my day job, I'd consider that a huge success. So welcome, Jethro.
Thank you. Hi.
First, I just want to get a little bit more about you, where you're living, what you're doing, how you're spending your time in this quarantine, and what life has been like so far.
Yeah, so I've just moved into a new house. So as you can see, it's a little bit bare on the walls. I just got my panda there. Living in Birmingham still, working here as well. In the quarantine, just been working all the way through. So it's not been much break for us in the NHS. Just having to see these same patients that we would be normally, but under a little bit more pressure. So it's been difficult to get the writing in as well. But yeah, that's what I've been doing really, and trying to get outside as much as possible. But you know, it's been difficult for all of us.
Of course, yeah. Now, have you been seeing a lot of COVID patients in your NHS wards?
In mine, not so much, because we're specialists in neurology. We don't see the more respiratory side of things. So it's we see an occasional one come through, but they don't usually stay there long, because we've got quite vulnerable people on the ward. We need to ship them through quite quickly. But there's a ward next door to mine that's just for COVID patients. So we come into contact with them. Just have to make sure we're covered up.
Right. How did you get started in the neurology?
I did when first qualified as a physio, we do rotations. So just going around different areas and specialties. I found that neurology was the thing I got the most reward out of. The thing I enjoyed most. Seeing those sort of patients improve is for me a lot more rewarding than working with sports injuries and that sort of thing. So yeah, it spouted from there really.
Right. No, that's really interesting. Anything dealing with the brain, I feel like is very interesting. Um,
Yeah.
so you're working in all these, neuro wards and helping all of these people with such, terrible conditions. And that's such a great thing. But at the same time, you're also pursuing a writing career. And how did you get started in writing? How did you become a writer, and what made you want to even take that dive?
It's a bit of a weird one, really. So I just started a new job I was sort of working in a completely new environment, but I got a bit of an idea in my head. So I had what was my prologue for my first book that in my head that I just couldn't get out. I felt like I needed to get it down on paper, so that was what kicked me off really. So I wrote that. I thought that would be the end of it. That's out of my head now. I'm fine. I can live with it. I can live with myself now. But then the ideas just kept flowing, so I felt like I had to continue, and that ended up being my first novel. But the prologue that I originally wrote, that originally got me into writing, has been wiped. So that I'm keeping hold of it, but it's not going to be in that book.
Yeah. Now, do you have a plan for that prologue in the future? You're saying, perhaps.
Yeah, I wouldn't say plan, but it's there in case I need it.
Right.
Yeah.
So how would you describe your writing style, and when do you typically write, and for how long?
Writing style, I'm definitely a pantser. So I tend to write with the longer works around about three chapters or so, and then I write down some sort of outline or something that I feel the story should be going in that direction. I tend to stick with that for another 2 chapters or so, and then it just goes out the window again, and I start pantsing. So I try and fool myself into thinking that I'm a bit more of a plotter, but it's not really the case. I just try and fool myself into that.
Right.
In terms of when I write, it completely depends. So at the moment, it depends on my girlfriend's shifts as well. So if she's doing night shifts, it gives me some time to write in the day. If she's doing day shifts, I tend to write towards the evening. I write as much as I can in the week, but it's difficult, and sometimes just feeling a little bit drained from work. So I just have to sit down with a Netflix and a hot beverage or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you just need to take a break, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So at the weekends, I get as much as I can in as well. But again, it depends on the shift patterns of the other half. So.
Right. So I know you do a lot of short work, a lot of short stories, and this Bang to Begin is a collection of short stories. So what drew you to writing short stories rather than something longer like a novel primarily?
Well, I like the immediacy of it. So you feel like you're getting somewhere quick. With a novel, it feels like a bit of a slog sometimes. So I tend to write short stories to break that up a little bit. So I might be writing a bigger project for a little while, and then I sort of leave that for a little bit, let it ruminate for a while, and then I pick up a smaller project. That might be from a competition that I'm doing. It might be from for the instance with Bang to Begin, I started writing all of these short stories on a subscription website called Chinillo. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So I was writing that as a bit of a serial, and then I originally was writing them purely as short stories. I got to about the 5th or the 6th one in, and I thought, hey, there's a bit of a theme running here, or some way I could connect them all, and that's how Bang to Begin was born, really. Yeah. So short works. Yeah, I'd say it's the reward comes quicker, and that's what drew me to it, I guess.
Got it. Yeah, and David, who writes, is posting writing short stories is so fulfilling. I'm sure
Absolutely.
you feel the same way.
Definitely. And the best bit about it as well is not only that you finish the story quickly, you get that first draft done, but the editing process is so much more. It's quicker, but it's also you can spend a lot of time on a very small section. Whereas in a novel, it feels like you have to, when you're editing the whole lot, it feels like you have to break it down into those sections and maybe spend a little bit more time on some than others. Whereas the short story, the whole thing, you can edit the hell out of it.
Right. Yeah. And oftentimes I'm sure you can sit down for a couple hours and crank out the first draft of that and feel like you've completed something, right? Instead of just a chapter of a very long novel, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where the enjoyment comes from. I think it's quick fire. So especially if you're doing it for something specific. So a few publishing journals, they have specific competitions where they ask for you to write on a certain theme or something. So that's great. It gives you a little bit of inspiration and gives you a prompt, something to work around.
Oh yeah.
It's great.
And speaking of prompts, I know that you and I have chatted a little bit about the writing community hashtag on Twitter. Can you talk a little
Hmm.
bit about its influence on you and your writing?
Yeah. So where can I start really? So I mentioned to you the VSS 365 prompt, which is it stands for very short story. 365 is in days of the year. So every single day of the year, there's a prompt that you can write a Twitter-sized story or a few tweet-sized story just to keep the juices flowing, if you like. So it gives you a really good excuse to develop a very small idea, but a lot of those ideas you can develop into something bigger. So a couple of those things have led into my other book, which is made up from those tweets, but also slightly larger projects as well. And it makes you focus so much on that word count as well, because you've got so few characters to work with. You have to make every one of them count, and that really helps with other writing. If you're writing larger works and you've got that frame of mind, then it makes every one of those words count, and therefore makes the larger works better as well, hopefully.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, something like that would be considered flash fiction, right? That's fairly short.
Yeah, flash fiction, microfiction is depending on the terminology, it's all pretty much just quick writing and hoping to get something out there as quickly as possible. And again, it's rewarding in that you get the immediacy of it. As soon as you post it, you can get comments on it. People are sending their own versions of the prompts out as well, and you can compare. So it's great to see the amount of different ideas that come from just a single word prompt as well. It's amazing.
Oh, I bet. I'm definitely gonna have to check out that hashtag now that you've mentioned it because I've just recently tried to get into Twitter, more so for the writing side of things, and it's a huge community, which is great to see.
Massive, yeah,
It's
massive.
just a lot to take in, so I'll definitely have to follow that hashtag.
Mm.
We have, I believe it's Delilah Doe Ryder,
Okay,
is saying Jet really nails his VSS 365 stories. We love them.
there we go.
All
Okay,
right.
thanks. And
And
yeah, same back. There's so many talented writers that just go on to Twitter and write these small stories. Delilah being one of them. We've got Jana's down here as well, watching too. So two really good writers, and there's, like I say, there's a community of thousands of people that just write these stories every single day, and it's great to see some of the work that comes out.
yeah, no, I can't wait to jump in the very large pool of hundreds of thousands of writers out there doing this.
Do it, do it.
Now, MC is asking, would any of you collaborate with other authors to do a short story set in your respective universe?
That's really interesting, actually. Yeah, I'd love to do something like that. I'm actually at the moment working on a little short story anthology with someone, and Jana, who's watching as well, she's involved in it too. We're both writing. I can't say too much about it yet because I'm not the main brain behind it. But it's quite exciting. It's something a little bit new, I think, and it's made up of writers all around the world. There's I think 10 of us contributing. So that should be coming out hopefully sometime next year.
Great. I
Mm.
mean, I've been listening to a few podcasts off and on, and I've heard some people actually talk about writing and basically creating a giant house of writers that write within the same universe, but they write different, novels or short stories like that. And I've always thought that was an interesting idea, having other people take on your characters and your world. I
Yeah,
imagine
yeah,
it's something like I play a lot of D&D, and I imagine it's something like that where you've created this world, this campaign, right? But you're letting people use your maps and your world and everything about it, and they just kind of like run their own stories.
yeah, yeah. And I suppose it's like it's similar to fan fiction as well, isn't it? Just
Yeah.
I guess hopefully you're fans of each other instead of all fans of the one person. But yeah, it's an interesting concept, and I'd love to see how someone would take my characters and run with them. I think Bang to Begin is a bit of a difficult one to go with just because of the nature of it, but there's definitely some other work I'd love to see what people do with. Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And can you give us a little bit insight into your self-publishing journey, and the querying process so far and how it's going?
Yeah, so from a self-publishing perspective, I've got Bang to Begin. I've got Two Halves of the Candle is my other book that's there as well. So I didn't really know much about it before I went into it. I stumbled across I think again it was a Twitter thread talking about KDP with Amazon, and I just had a scroll through, and I thought, why am I spending so much time querying when I could be doing this and getting something out a little bit earlier, and then go back to the querying process afterwards. So it's the immediacy factor is great with self-publishing. It puts a lot of onus on you as an author to be a marketer as well, which I'm not so great at. I don't enjoy that part of it at all. But doing things like this is obviously a little bit more helpful. If someone else is putting all the legwork in and you can just jump in and put your face on a video, it's great. So,
oh yeah, and that's primarily the reason that I wanted to do something like this, is because I know that there's all these authors and storytellers out there that they have such a great voice and they have great projects, but we don't necessarily know each other, and the community is so big that sometimes it takes a little bit of roping in to get everybody together. And I'm definitely very, very happy to have met everybody so far, and everybody I'm continuously meeting throughout the process. Now we have some more questions. I'm very excited. We're getting so many great questions about the short story stuff. David, who writes, is asking, any thoughts on releasing short stories periodically throughout the year as opposed to waiting for a collection?
Yeah, so I've heard of a lot of people writing on Wattpad and Medium and other websites like this, and it's another interesting avenue to look at. I suppose it's deciding where you spend your energy, isn't it? And there's so many projects that you can be working on all at the same time, and that's where I get a little bit stuck. So my novels have taken a back seat for a long time now, and that's because I've been focusing on Bang to Begin and these other short story competitions and things that I've been looking at. So yeah, it's definitely something that I'd look into. It's not something that I probably would do immediately, but yeah, in the future, it's probably something I'm gonna have a go at as well. I think what I need first is a wider base of people already reading my stuff to make me feel like it's worth doing that.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally get that. And Dan was asking, do you have any suggestions on how to submit your short story or poetry to be part of an anthology? And Delilah was very gracious, kind enough to include that if you join the writing community hashtag on Twitter, there are always anthologies launching looking for people.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all over the place. They're 10 a penny. You just got to pick out the right ones for you. So the one that we're working on, I've known the guy that's collating it for probably, it's got to be over 18 months now. So just when I first started on Twitter, I got to know him. I got to know a couple of the other people that are watching as well, and we grew as short story writers whilst writing on Twitter, writing for the prompts and that sort of thing. And I think when you see other people's writing for a little while, and you have a bit of an idea of what their style's like, and if it will match yours, then that's when you know which anthologies you should be looking at joining, but also what sort of people you want to be there for you as beta readers or as helpful sort of collaborators on certain projects as well. And the writing community, I've got to say, it's probably the best place that you can do it on Twitter, just because it's so focused on the writing rather than the marketing side of things as well, if you're looking in the right place.
Right, which is a very helpful way to go, because I feel like a lot of things that we tend to Google tend toward the marketing side of things rather than the craft. And it's nice to know that there's a community on Twitter even that will help you with your craft and is very encouraging. I mean, I can tell just from the comments here, even Delilah and Dan and everybody commenting back and forth. It's great to see such a camaraderie already building within our comment section.
Yeah, definitely. And that is, it just mirrors what it's like on Twitter as well. So there's a lot of banter, and it's worth going just for that, even if you don't want to get too involved in the writing collaboration and all that sort of thing. It's just good to have a lot of people who are friendly and want to support each other in that way as well.
Right. And Delilah mentioned that they are a weird and wonderful bunch, which is a good combination, I'd say.
Yeah, and she's absolutely including me in that, so thanks.
So we're talking about short stories and this microfiction, flash fiction, whatever you want to call it, these shorter bits.
Hmm.
But can you talk a little bit about your process as to sitting down to write a short story versus sitting down to write a longer work, like a full-length novel?
Yeah, for me, there's not a huge amount of difference, to be honest. I have to think in a different way. The actual execution of it is pretty much the same. So, I, as a pantser, I just write what flows, and if it sounds all right, I keep it. If it doesn't, then I delete and I write again. And I'm an absolute self stickler, so I will be self-editing myself the whole way through, and that can be both a gift and a burden. When it comes to the first draft, it's a burden. When it comes to that first edit, it's, yeah, you thank yourself for doing it.
Oh yeah.
But whether whether it makes it shorter in the longer run, I've got no idea, because I always tend to do it. I can't help myself. I need to have my some part of my brain switched off, I think, and just to do the test. And I don't know, if you can figure out a way to do it, then I'll be happy to try.
Oh yeah, same. And I mean, I used to try to do that edit as I go thing, and I mean, I used to do it without trying. Actually, that was the problem. I would edit and I would not let myself keep going until I finally was like, you know what, just get it down. Once I created an outline, that was how I could get away without editing too much um in the moment. So I become more of a plantser, you know, so that I could get a little bit of structure, but then within those bounds, I'm free to move around,
Yeah, definitely,
which
definitely. I
definitely
think that's the
helps.
best way to go. Yeah, I think, yeah, the combination effect is definitely the way. If you've got an idea of where you're going, just not how you get there. I think that's the fun part of writing. So I will generally have an idea of what my ending's going to be, but it might change by the time I get there, and that's fine, as long as I feel happy with the end result, then I'm happy with that.
Right. I think for most of us authors out there, I'd say that it's more important to focus on the journey rather than the destination, right?
Absolutely, yeah. As if you've just focused on the destination, you'll drive yourself insane. And I'm a believer in in not doing that. So I try my best not to. But sometimes you get stuck on an idea, and you feel like you need to just to go with it. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And I think if you plan to a certain extent, um, then you've got a bit of structure, and then it doesn't matter how you go from that point. So if you structure yourself and then continue with that, then that's great. But if you can structure it to start with and then work around, then it makes for a more creative process in my mind. But yeah, that's just me. There's a lot of plotters out there that do exactly the opposite.
Oh yeah. And you know what's funny though is I've talked to a good number of people so far, and both on here and outside of this, and I feel like I run into more planters than plotters. It tends to the people that I gravitate toward, at least, tend to have at least a little bit of freedom. I haven't met too many people who have been like, I'm a plotter and I stick to it. You know,
No, no.
of course,
I
I don't
get
know. I don't know how
suspicious of
those
those people.
big names work either. You know, because some of them may be a plotter and are selling millions of copies and it works for them. But
Yeah, I suppose if you've got a formula and it works, then it's hard to steer away from it, because especially if you're relying on it financially too. If you've got something that works, and it relies on a specific plot, then yeah, it sometimes you'll have to, I guess.
oh yeah.
Mm.
So we've talked about Bang to Begin. Can you give us an idea as to like the feel of the book, and are there any recurring characters throughout these short stories, or is it all separate vignettes?
They all join together. So the as I mentioned before, when I got to about the sixth story, which is called The Death of Fate, it became apparent to me that there's something a little bit more than just a collection of short stories here, and I felt like I should pay a little bit of onus towards the characters early on, to let them come through to later. What that meant though was that I had to go back, following the entries on Chinilo. I had to go back and rework the first sort of five stories or so, just to make sure that all the characters are aligned, because I hadn't, because of not thinking about that in the first instance. They were different characters. They were different they were named differently, although then they to combine them into the later stories, they all join together. So overall, it may feel a little bit disjointed, and to a certain extent that's supposed to be the way it is. It's a little bit of it's a psychological thriller in a certain way, in that you don't really know what's going on, who to trust in terms of the narrator, how trustworthy that narrator is, and it should become apparent by the end who to trust to a certain extent. But I wanted to leave it a little bit ambiguous throughout, and that's part of what makes it a little bit different, I think.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about crafting that mystery, that thriller aspect within all of your stories, and how you keep us in a little bit of suspense and mystery?
Yeah, I guess the main part of it becoming the thriller theme through it is that they are short stories in their essence. So you've got a lot packed into each chapter because they're standalone. So you have to have a start and an end to that particular story. Although it connects back in later ones, they all have that drive to get from start to finish, and hopefully that comes across a little bit. In terms of the general feel of it, it is a dark book. It's not a heartwarming tale that you're going to get out of it, but it explores more than just the darkness. It's more looking at the human psyche and the emotional instability of different perceptions. And I'm making it sound cleverer than it is. It's not that clever, but it's all woven together. But you won't really realize that until later on in the book. And I think that's how the mystery stays alive, is that you're not really sure where it's going until you get there. And that's what I like about it myself.
Yeah, no, that sounds really interesting. And I love that you bring up the fact that it is a dark tale. Don't come in expecting to laugh and go to bed with warm dreams. You know, this could be a nightmarish book in a way, right?
Yeah, and a couple of people have said that to me. So my uncle, he came back to me and said it's like being put into and taken out of a nightmare. I think that was a little bit strong. I think it was a little bit strong, but there's elements of humor in there as well. I very rarely do anything completely seriously in my life, including work and everything. As if you spoke to my colleagues, they could attest to. There was one just watching earlier. I'm not sure if you're still there, but there's a lot of darkness in it. There's a lot of light in it as well, and I think what shines more, or what comes through more, is the dark side of it. You need to look a little bit harder if you want to find the light in there as well.
Right. And I think that's kind of mirroring life in a way sometimes, right? I mean, sometimes we're in a darker place in life, and there's always a little bit of light somewhere, but we just sometimes have to dig really deep to find it.
Yeah. So there are silver linings in there. They just might be a little bit shaded.
Now, earlier you mentioned you like to climb in your bio. So I know we chatted a little bit about this one-on-one, but just to share with everyone, we both, I also do indoor rock climbing, and can you talk a little bit about your climbing and how that has influenced you in your writing? And we also had a question come up earlier while you're on that topic, that asking, does inspiration ever hit during a climb?
Yeah, to that question, I'll answer that question first. No, the only thing that's going through my head is how not to fall off, and how much longer my fingers are going to grip onto these holds. But the inspiration from that, it comes a little bit later. So there is one of the short stories is quite climbing based. Further towards the end of the book, there's a whole sequence, and it's a little bit it's set from two perspectives, and one of those perspectives is someone that's climbing at the time while someone else is doing something else. So I won't go into too much detail to spoil it all for you, but it comes from a place where I've been in climbing often, where I don't feel like I can hold on much longer, and it's a little bit high off the ground to just drop.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I definitely have been in that position of, almost 30 feet or 20 to 30 feet in the air. And you're like, I definitely can't hold on much longer and I don't want to drop from here.
Yeah,
So I'm going to down climb a little bit and then I'll drop.
yeah, that's it, that's it. And the in the story itself, yeah, that's the down climbing and the drop is not so possible. So have a have a read and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah, no, I definitely will. Now, before I move on to the next question, I just want to bring up there's a play that I've read a while back. I don't know if you read many plays, but there's a play called, I believe, K2, and it's
Okay.
about two men climbing on the mountain and some major conflict on there, and it's really interesting. It's just two people the whole time, so
Right, okay. No,
it's pretty interesting.
fine. And is it in production as well, or?
It was. I think it's a little bit older now. I believe maybe late 90s, early 2000s at this point. I can't
Okay.
remember the date, but I found it
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Yeah, nice.
So you're finished with Bang to Begin. You've put that out into the world. People are reading it. Can you talk a little bit about the reaction you had first off to putting it out into the world, and then secondly the reaction that you received from everyone?
Yeah, fine. So, from family, mixed reviews. And that is exactly what I was expecting. When I put out Two Halves of the Candle earlier as well, I had the same thing. So, they the first reaction I got was, "Are you okay? Do you need me to get someone to talk to you about this?" Or, and that's typical response from my nan. So, I was expecting that one. I've had uh, a couple of family members that really enjoyed it, a couple of family members that say it wasn't for them, and again, it's like I say, it's a dark book, and I I warned them before, and they said it's quite dark, and I said, yeah, I told you, but that's just how it goes. In terms of the feedback I've been getting and the reviews and things have been pretty good so far. I've had the occasional one that's not liked it, but that's still just the way it goes. You take the good with the bad, but overall it's had pretty good reception. And the 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 really good thing that I've had from it is that mostly the people that have liked it have been other writers as well, and they've sort of praised me on the way it's been written, and that you can't really ask for more of a praise than that, really, than other writers saying that you write well. In my opinion,
Yeah.
it'd be nice if the agents thought that way as well, but that's a different matter.
Of course. And speaking of, I don't believe we got to the second half of the question earlier about the querying. Can you talk a little bit about what you're querying and how it feels to be in that process?
Yeah, so it's not for the faint-hearted, is what I'd say. I've sent out quite a few queries of the first novel that I mentioned earlier. It's gone through quite a lot of reworks, and I'm learning each time. And each time I feel like I'm making it good enough, and I'm not quite there. So it is a process. It is a very long process, but I'm learning all the time, and that's the way to look at it, I think, rather than just taking it as negatives and rejection, as I'm sure a lot of people do, and I'm sure a lot of people give up at this stage. But if you take on not only that they are rejections, but there's something that you can work on to make it better, then in the long run, that's going to benefit you as well, because there's a lot of rubbish out there as well. I'm sure we've all read quite a lot that we would be shocked to have got published in the first place, and they've got through publishing houses. And you think to yourself, why have they made it and I haven't? And I think some of it is luck, and we have to find the right person who wants the right thing at the right time, and finding that person is difficult, because there are so many of us out there and so many people doing it, and especially right now there's been I think a lockdown influx, hasn't there, of books and isolation books and all these things that are coming out. So um, I try my hardest not to get downhearted by it. It's impossible not to. At some stage it feels like a little bit of an uphill battle that you can never win, but it I have faith in that I write well, and that there is someone out there that will like my book and take it on. And if I can make it better in the meantime to mean that more people like it once it does get to that stage, then great, we'll
Oh
go
yeah.
for that.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I think as I've mentioned with a few other authors throughout this process so far, it's a lot of them have said the same thing, and I mean we see this in professional author, you know, and not everyone here is a professional, but these big name authors actually, you know, we all get rejections, and even you know, those tend to be what we actually learn the most from, right? The rejections, not these people who say, oh, it's just not for me, or I don't like it. The people who say no, and here's why.
Yeah.
That's even better. And I know that Stephen King actually, in his book on writing, I'm not sure if you've read it or not, but it's basically a memoir, and he mentions how he kept, like, I don't remember the number. It was like 100 or hundreds of rejection letters, right, on Carrie,
Yeah.
and other things. And it's just amazing to see that somebody of his caliber, and same thing for the Beatles. I mean, they were all told no by so many different record labels, you know, and then look at them now, you know.
I know. Yeah.
So, like you
We
said, it
need to
just
hold
takes
on to
time
these.
and the right person. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it shows as well that it's even the best have these problems, but it can give you a little bit of hope for so long, can't it? When you have a load of rejections that just are left there, these rejections that aren't responders. These are the difficult ones. I think I'm happy to get a form rejection because I know where I stand with them. When you get left outside for a long time and you don't know what's going on, that's when it gets a little bit more difficult. And um, I think agents can learn a little bit from uh, the way they make the authors feel in terms of their product. If I know they don't have time to write responses to each and every one, but if they had even a form rejection that just goes out automatically when they when they click a button, that makes a massive difference for all of us because it means I can tick it off on my Excel spreadsheet and think, oh, I won't go back to them for a while then.
Right. Yeah. You can take a break, but you'll come back eventually.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Um, S. Elizabeth wrote, she's a published poet. Actually, I chatted with her recently. She said, once wrote a poem on a rejection letter, and now that poem is in my latest book. So keep going. You will find the right house.
Okay, I better get onto the poetry with that as well then.
And yeah, Delilah brings up a good point. She's saying that your book is closest to Black Mirror, the Charlie Brooker TV show. So if you're a fan of that, Bang to Begin will be your kind of thing.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah. Thank you very much.
so MC is asking again, do you two feel this when you get super positive reviews? Do you recoil and think they're lying to you? That's a good question.
Yeah. Shall I'll let you go first. I've been doing too much talking. Go on, Lane.
No, that's fine. I mean, I've gotten only a few reviews since my book is yet to come out, but I've had some ARC readers come back with reviews, and to be honest, I was expecting a little less than I got 2 5-star reviews so far from them, and I was expecting them to be much more critical, and they were critical, but it was all positive, and I was like, are they sure that that they, you know, that they really love it, and that they are, and it's really great to see that. But yes, I can absolutely assure you that when my book comes out and I have positive ratings from total strangers that didn't get it ahead of time, and maybe live, you know, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, I will read it, and if it's just a 4 or 5-star and there's no comment, I might be like, I don't know, you know, or even if there is, I might think maybe they're just saying this to be nice. I think we all have a little bit of that, like imposter syndrome, or that feeling of, are they sure we're that good?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree completely. If I get a glowing review, 5 stars, I'm thinking, did they read the right book, or you know, are they going to send me a private message soon and say you saw that review? How much are you going to pay me for it? You know, but yeah, so I can definitely empathize with that totally.
Now, can you give us a little bit of an insight as to what you're working on for the future? What you're excited about working on next?
Yeah, definitely. So, what I'm most excited about at the moment is I'm working on a couple of screenplays. So, what I'd love to do is get into working with TV or film. So, I've at the moment got a screenplay that I've written, knowing absolutely nothing about writing screenplays. and now gone in to do a little bit more research around it and found out what I've done wrong. And I'm loving actually the editing process on this, which is not usually my favorite thing to do, but the way that I've done it, I've written an absolute pile of, I won't say the word, but the next stage of it now is showing me actual progress in my abilities, and that is exciting to see. I don't know much about the process of getting this out there at the moment. I've got someone looking at it as we speak, hopefully, who's in the industry, and again, I'm looking more for feedback from him than him to get it out there. But you never know. You've got to take all of these bonuses when you can.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a comedy as well. So it's completely the opposite to Bang to Begin. There's the occasional bit of darkness in there, but it's the opposite way around from this one. It's the dark lining rather than the silver lining, and hopefully that will come through. But it depends on humor. Humor is a very difficult one to gauge, isn't it? So you can think that you're writing something absolutely hilarious, and you'll get someone turning in the other direction. So we'll see how it goes. And the rest of what I'm working on really is the anthology story that I mentioned as well, that me and a few of the other Twitter people are working on. And I've got my the editing side of my second novel that I've written, which is a sci-fi fantasy sort of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a little bit of a dip into the sequel for that as well. But like I said, that longer work has all gone on hold for quite a while now, and I really need to get back into it.
Right. Now, I have also, as I've mentioned to a few other people, been working on, the TV and like a pilot episode and some other screenplay stuff. And it's very interesting going from prose, like a novel or a short story, to something that's going to be on the screen rather, and instead. But I tend to be one of those people that when I'm writing, I'm kind of seeing it, in my head when I'm writing it, and I almost write my novels as sort of as like a prose version of a screenplay to me. Which I sometimes comes through in the description, I think, but sometimes I have to edit it out because of that. But I mean, if anybody were to ever ask me, after the book is out and the trilogy is done, would you like to for this to be a movie? Absolutely, and I would hope to be brought on as the writer of the screenplay, if not the at least not the supervisor for said script. But would you see any of your short stories be done as TV or film?
I think these short stories, there's some that could work in a certain way on screen, I think, but they probably have to be reworked. I don't think as a whole this book would be right for screen. I think it's too out there in terms of the what it's about. It's too much about what's going on inside rather than what's visually happening, I think. But as standalone stories, there's definitely a couple that could work, and there's some that have taken influence from film and TV as well to a certain extent. And I'd love to see my work on screen. I'd love to see that. I don't think this is probably the right one for it though. Right.
Now, Dan is asking, how do you lay out a screenplay on the page like you would a play script? Yeah, Dan, it's very similar. And in fact, you can always download. There's plenty of TV pilot episodes out there to download for free. The scripts, because the shows have been done and people allow you to do that. And you can use Final Draft, or some people I know use Microsoft Word even for that. But I use Final Draft for all the screenplay and stage play stuff. But Jethro, is that the same for you? What do you typically use?
Yeah, so the one I wrote, as I said, I didn't know anything about writing it, so I had a little bit of a search on Google, and I found a way to format Word so it puts it into screenplay format for you, and it does everything pretty much automatically with a couple of hotkeys. I've since been told about Fade In, which is a free software that you can get, which again, it lays it all out for you. I haven't used it properly yet. I've just had a quick look, but I'm going to be translating everything I wrote on Word over to that and hopefully that will make it a little bit easier for me to get into the industry with industry standards that I haven't just sort of mocked up myself.
Yeah, and I mean it's so funny how visually, you know, something the story could be great, but if your screenplay doesn't look like it's industry standards, then they're probably not even gonna take a second look, right? So
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the reason I wrote the first one actually was because I got told of a screenplay writing competition for the BBC over here.
yeah.
So I wrote for that competition. I wrote the whole pilot episode in 7 days and sent it in because that's when the deadline was, just to see what would happen. They promptly replied saying, we want someone with a little bit more experience. So I thought, yeah, that's probably fair enough. After 7 days, I probably don't have too much experience. So yeah.
Would you say that your comedy is similar to any of the British TV shows over there?
To a certain extent, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I'm not. This is where I need to see if it's going to translate over to you guys over there, because we have different humours generally in terms of what's picked up by publishing broadcasting companies, but I think there's a lot of similarities in it. You just need to dig. Um, a good example of this is The Office.
Right.
So the British Office is completely different to the American Office, but there are certain little bits in it that do translate. It's hard for me to watch as someone who's a bit of a fan of the first one, of the original, but there's definitely some things that have translated quite well, and there's some things that have been completely avoided because they didn't think it would translate. So it's good to watch these sort of things as a bit of a learning experience as well, and taking note. I'm currently reading Sid Field's screenplay. The sort of it's like a memoir book similar to Stephen King's on writing, I guess, but for screenplays.
Mm-hmm.
And it highlights different aspects of how you should lay out scripts, how you should format them from a plotting point of view as well. And it's a really good resource, but it also tells you how to pick out different sections of that whilst you're watching film for this one. There's not too much about TV in there yet, but from a film perspective, it shows you when to look for the inciting incidents, how to translate those into your own work, and how you can sort of meet industry standards from that side as well. It's really good.
Yeah. And I have to say a few resources that I really love would be Save the Cat, both the novel and the screenplay version. Blake Snyder's Save the Cat has been used, I think, by almost every industry professional and in many industries for formatting reasons. And then also there's a book, I believe McKee is the last name, called Story. And it's a very good book that would be useful, I think, for anyone writing anything. But regarding your sci-fi, we have a question to see if you can give us your sci-fi fantasy. Could you give us even like a little hint as to what it's about?
Little hint, yeah. So it centers around a blacksmith, but this blacksmith is a little bit different from your usual. So he imbues his weapons with electricity or some sort of energy. I won't go into details because it's a little bit of a spoiler, but he introduces this into the weapons. There are other ones that introduce fire into the weapons, and other ones that are more based on poisons and sort of espionage and that sort of thing. So it centers around the society that he's in sort of breaking down, and the ruler of, if you like, of that society trying to hold on to it, trying to expand at the same time as it all collapsing, and he's caught in the middle of it. So that's in a nutshell. There's a little bit more to it than that, but do you know what? I need to go back and read over it again myself because it's been so long, and I don't know what I shouldn't be spoiling and what I should be.
Well, I love the description you've given us. So hopefully we have plenty more of surprises. I'm sure there will be, especially now if you go back and realize that you spoiled something, you can change that now.
Oh yeah.
But MC wants to know, do we ever read our own books as a reader rather than an author? And if so, how would you describe the experience as in the emotions it conjures?
Okay. For me, I can never read my work as just a reader because of my editing problem that I mentioned. if I read my own work, I will be kicking myself because I've written something in a slightly different way than I would do now, and I wouldn't be able to enjoy it at all. But from reading it through as a writer, I feel the tension still, even though I've already written it, already read it through however many times. So I'm hoping that that translates to the readers as well. I think that it's the darkness is there, but I know it's coming, so it's less of a surprise. But hopefully it will be a bit more of a surprise for whoever reads it.
Right. And I have to say, for me, I'm kind of similar in the way you mentioned that it's very hard to read my own book and not see it through the lens of myself as the writer, because I'm going to read something, and I tried to do this with the first paperback proof I got through KDP, and I had my pencil out right after like on the first page, and was like, well, I need to move that. I need to take care of that, because it's going to be hard. I think maybe I might sit down and read it, or read it on my Kindle, maybe after it's fully out there, and other people have seen it, and it's now no longer, not that we can't go back, because in self-publishing you can go back and fix things, but I'm not going to, and that way maybe I can go back and read it then and just know, okay, sit down, relax, read this, don't think about changing anything, and if you think of anything, put it in book 2 or 3.
Yeah. It's so hard to read it without just wanting to change everything. And I think because we grow as writers as we go through our career, I think we will see things even that we wouldn't spot now, as we will do in 5 years' time if we went back to it and we think, what was I doing?
Oh yeah. And before we get into the we've already gotten plenty of questions. So if there's any more people out there watching and you have a question that you'd like to have answered, please put it in the comment section. And as we're waiting for questions, would you mind to give us a little snippet of Bang to Begin, if you can?
Well, Bang to Begin, yeah. Let me.
Or the other. I'm whichever you prefer. Yeah.
Tell you what, I'll give you a snippet of that one that I'm querying at the moment, because then you've got something that other people won't have heard. How about that? That's
all right.
something.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got it on my laptop here, so you might get that feedback again. Hopefully not. Okay. So this book is called Kept in the Dark. Following a theme here, aren't I? So I'll read until you tell me to stop, shall I? So the main character is called Nathan. So this first chapter focuses on him. There's the two MCs. He's one of them. The other one is his niece who's gone missing. So this is his first chapter. So
okay, I'd say probably like the maybe first page or two, maybe.
Yeah. That's fine. So I've drawn a crowd. A sea of beady eyes await my next move. Slamming my fists onto the desk, clutter jumping and phone case splitting, I heave myself up. Sarah's face disappears from the phone screen with a disconnection tone. Gasps from my gawping colleagues as I sway on shaking legs. Weary arms and hunched shoulders save me from falling. I shove my car keys and mobile into my pocket, heart racing, and slip into my jacket, still slick with drizzle. Haven't you seen enough? I jab a finger at no one in particular. Haven't you all got work to do? A few awkward glances. Some retreat to their own plywood, carpet-tiled prisons. Others stick around, fingers crossed for more fireworks. You okay, Nathan? Debbie, from 2 booths down, peers over the office divider. You look pale. Heidi's sweet face floats somewhere between reality and my hangover haze, her smile peeling away with what's left of her innocence. I force my eyes open, choke back a retch, and will the room to stop spinning. I need to go. The words tumble from my mouth. Cheap aftershave and tanning lotion swim up my nose, mixing with a stale whiskey still coating my tongue. Craig pats me on the back twice, like a concerned friend. Acid bubbles up my throat as he turns me to face him, a manager with boundary issues. What are you doing, Nathan? He says, 2 hands on his executive cricket bat, ready to swing. You were half an hour late and you're leaving before. Shut up, Craig. I grab his shoulder to steady myself and stare into his sunset orange face as it contorts, his preened eyebrows sinking so low he can probably taste them. My niece is missing, and I'm going to help find her, so you can shove those energy usage reports up whichever hole you enjoy the most. Another power cut plunges the room into silent darkness, save for the hum of dying hard drives and click-clacking of automatic fire doors. I use the confusion to barge past Craig and stagger into a metal bin. The crash rips through my reeling head like a dart through a balloon, knocking me off balance. I stop to catch myself on the wall, squeeze my temples between my thumbs, then head for the stairs. She wouldn't just run away. She wouldn't. She'd talk to me. Look at the state of you, Nathan. What help are you going to be? Craig shouts above the rising gossip. You're a mess. 50's around the corner, you can barely tie your own shoelaces these days. With my middle finger kept securely in a tightened fist, I pushed through a wall of colleagues into the concrete stairwell, green safety lights leading me down. Expect a call from HR tomorrow morning. His voice cracks and the echoes follow me downstairs 2 steps at a time, washed away by heartbeats and dark thoughts. Nothing he says matters, only Heidi does.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I feel like immediately we know who this character is, and I also was very intrigued as to how well you portrayed something as boring as an office cubicle. You know, I was kind of expecting this. I don't really know what I was expecting, but then when you said it from the cubicle, I was like, oh, he's at work.
He's at work.
I love that. It was
Cool.
Yeah, very well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So this is what I'm querying at the moment. So any agents out there, feel free to send me a DM. You know.
No, I love that. So before we, I have the winner for the giveaway already. I just want to, before we get there, want to thank everyone, including you, Jethro, for joining me tonight. It's been such a pleasure. This is very exciting. I just want to finish with a little more information about the whole of the event and my book, because it wouldn't be an event about it if I didn't bookend it with it. So I just want to remind everybody, this is day 4 of 12 for the 12 days of the Delivery Company, which is the title of my debut novel. It's a young adult dystopian novel, and it is available for pre-order now on Amazon, Kobo, Apple Books, pretty much anywhere. You can get the ebook and the paperback. Paperback is $14.99. The ebook is $4.99 right now, but will go up to $6.99 on release day. So without further ado, our winner is Dan J. Wrights.
Congratulations.
So congratulations, Dan. If you want to message me after we finish the live, I'll get your information and send it over to Jethro. Jethro, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. See you later.
Good night, everybody.